Welcome to IBF's inaugural vodcast, IBF Executive Lounge, in conversation with Piyush Gupta. I'm your host, Charmaine Yee. AI has taken the world by storm. And for me, I use ChatGPT and GenAI almost daily. It's definitely made my life more productive. In fact, I use GenAI to prepare for this very episode to find out more about my guest. And very soon, we will find out how accurate it is. Today, we look at how AI and GenAI will transform the financial sector. I'm joined by Piyush Gupta, CEO of DBS Bank, known for its award-winning innovations in digital banking. So Piyush, what is the most exciting or interesting thing that you've used AI or GenAI for?
I've started using the Meta AI, which you get on top of WhatsApp now, for everything. I use it 30, 40 times a day, and I've stopped doing Google search. I eliminated my ChatGPT premium account because the Meta AI is just fabulous. It answers everything, and you can do it in real time, all the time.
You've got your phone with you all the time too.
And it gives you better responses. So let me give you an example. I'm not sure, are you familiar with the New York Times, not Wordle, there's something called Connections.
Okay.
Right? And so they give you a list of 16 words, and you got to make groups of 4 and say why they're connected. I love words and puzzles. I do it every morning. And this morning, I had 4 words which I thought they were connected because I thought they were all basketball teams.
You asked WhatsApp.
I went to Meta AI and said, Magic, Thunder, Heat, and this thing, basketball teams. And it knows this. If you try to Google search it, it's not easy. Because Google search cannot get the context that I'm trying to find. Is there an association between the 4? But AI can. Right? And so that it promptly said, yes, these are the things told me about how.
And probably even educated you on these teams too.
But actually, as things happened, I got the answer wrong because it was a red herring. It was my thinking was right, but the answer was wrong.
Okay.
But that's a great example. Yeah. How you can use AI in ways that you could never have thought of before.
And yet still not exactly...
Well, you can't get everything right.
Yeah, you can't get everything right. That is true. That is true. So in 2022, let's bring you right back. In a Business Times article, you shared that DBS's use of AI was a score of about 2 to 3 out of 10. Fast forward to today, 2 years later. Where are we on that score?
It's a relative question. If you ask me relative to the banking world and to industries in general, we're a solid 7, 8 in terms of the AI outcome.
Yeah.
In predictive AI, we started in 2012, 13 with IBM Watson. Then we set up a corporate lab with A-Star. We had 10 data scientists and we worked on AI at that time. Then we invested in about 10% of an AI company called Kasisto out of New York in 2016. So we've had 12, 14 years of working with AI.
Yeah.
2017, we started our data journey and created our data lakes and data migration. In the last 2 years, we've now been able to really scale that up, predictive AI, structured data predictive AI at scale. We do about 50 million nudges to customers in Singapore alone every month. Right?
Wow.
Yeah, so we're doing constant nudging based on AI. And it's simple things like AI will figure, hey, you might have spent twice on this item. Can you go check? Or, this bill of yours looks too high. You might want to go and figure it out. To more sophisticated things saying, hey, we know that in the past you've been interested in buying gold. This might be a good time for you to go and look at it because we think this is a good gold opportunity. So depends on sophistication. We use it extensively. We're using it for our hiring. We're using it for our internal mobility of our people. We're using it for liquidity management. We're using it for scam detection.
Oh, that's a big one.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
But we're getting 50, 60% accuracy that just based on the number of customer attributes we have, when you put a transaction through our AI model, says, hey, this doesn't look correct. And go pick it up, right?
Yeah.
And we can't get everything, but we get fairly high accuracy levels. We estimated and calculated the economic value of this predictive AI for us, and we think this year it's worth about $700 million. Next year, $1 billion
Massive.
Of delta economic value. It's massive, massive. So I think, we're solid 7 on 10. Now, why I say relative to the banking universe is because some of the tech companies, if you're Netflix or Alibaba or Facebook, these guys are born digital.
Yeah.
But more than that, they have access to a lot more data than we do.
Banks have got a lot of data too.
We do, but nowhere near the range. These people have 2 billion customers. We've got like 20 million customers.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So we don't have the scale. So relative to them, we still have work to do. But what I'm particularly proud of is we've been able to take AI and democratize it. So it's not in a small part of the bank. It's not in an ivory tower. It's not being used by our frontliners in journey after journey. They've all learned how to use AI and perpetuate it into the products and services that we offer. Fast forward GenAI. So GenAI, what do you say, it's like less than 2 years old, 18 months old. And again, it's early days, but I was talking to a couple of the global, the big four consultants yesterday, and they assured us that we are ahead of anybody in the world.
Singapore?
DBS.
DBS.
DBS is ahead of anybody in the world in terms of our thinking and the progress we made with GenAI in the banking space, not the non-banking space, right? Now, I don't know if it's true or not.
Well, they're all data banks.
But they were quite compelling. So the difference is what between predictive and GenAI to me, in my simplistic way. So GenAI can let you deal with unstructured data.
Yeah.
And because the natural language processing is so good, it can read stuff, it can read text, it can read video, it can make sense of that, which means that you can refine your models with a lot more attributes, but you can also get a lot more inputs. And then the second thing it does, because it can read, it can synthesize, it can understand, and then it can generate output. So the fact that it can then generate verbal, comprehensible English language output is the other big leap. So it can understand a lot better, it can create output a lot better. And therefore the possibilities with GenAI, expand manifold. What we've been trying to do in the last 12 months, like everybody, is we've chosen 3 or 4 what we call vertical use cases in particular domains where we think GenAI is immediately applicable. And then we've got what we call the horizontal use case, which is how do you get everybody in the company to become a lot more productive and better by using, we've got our own version of GPT, DBS GPT. So by using that, how do you become a lot more productive? And maybe we can talk a little bit more about that if you like. But because the whole domain is so new, even on GenAI, I give us a relatively high score. Not because we've got the outcomes, but just because in terms of our thinking, the infrastructure, the training of our people, I think we've made reasonably good progress.
And you're doing horizontal and vertical simultaneously.
So what we did, we ran a workshop beginning of last year, and we came up with, I'm sure everybody did that, we came up with 20 different use cases that were worth exploring. Of those, we categorized them into 3. There were a handful which we left to businesses saying, okay, you try it, but they weren't game-changing, right? They were the experiments people were doing. But we then chose 3 or 4, we said these are consequential, but they're in a domain. So the first, and a lot of companies are doing that, is the call center. So the way servicing and the call center operates just completely transforms with GenAI, and we can describe that later. The second one we figured is again open to significant change is software development and testing. And so there's a second vertical case. We said, okay, this is a domain which is going to change. We should focus hard on this. And the third vertical case that we focused on was relationship management, both for our corporate and our private banking customers, which is the way you manage client relationships and the information that you can use is going to change. On top of that, we've added a couple in wealth management and anti-money laundering and scams, but fundamentally we created these 3 or 4 verticals. In recent times, we've added that vertical to the vertical one in operations. Because the back-end operations of the bank, now GenAI can do a lot of the stuff that earlier we needed human beings to do. So we got these, verticals. The horizontal, though, is that we really wanted everybody in the bank to gain the value of this incredible tool. It can
you have to get on board, or you'll
synthesize, it can summarize, it can add, etc. So to do that, one, we've created enterprise knowledge base. Right, and so we pulled that together so everybody has access to a single source of truth. And we've coupled that with the DBS GPT. Now, we created DBS GPT because of all the risks. We didn't want to go to the external world. First, you have to transport data, which is risky. And second, many of these large language models, you're not sure which is the right one to use for which context. So, should we be using Bard, or should we be using Anthropic, or should we be using ChatGPT? So what we did is that we created a safe environment where we actually ring fence all our data. And then we created a single middleware, which allows, when you put in a use case, it decides which model is appropriate for this. So the user doesn't have to think. It goes and plugs into whichever Anthropic or Bard or Gemini, whichever, and applies that model to the problem that we need to solve. We now roll that out in the bank. You have to rescale, you've got to train, you've got to teach people about prompts, how to ask the right questions.
Yes, because it determines what you get.
So it's early days, to be fair. It's, we've only been rolled out since June, July. But at this stage, people have the capacity to use this as a co-pilot. It's a virtual co-pilot for everybody. So that's the horizontal use case. And you're right, we did the vertical and horizontal simultaneously because we wanted to reach a lot of people with this, what I call inch deep, mile wide. But at the same time, we wanted to go deep in some areas.
Let's talk a little bit more about those horizontals and verticals that we were talking about before.
So let me go back to the fundamental premise. What GenAI can do is read, synthesize, and write. Right? And we just break it down to those fundamentals. Then you can start saying, okay, which are the job and applications where you can get GenAI to read, synthesize, and write, and so help and assist somebody else who would normally try to do that. So the first area we found that this is very helpful is in the call center. We call it the contact center. So when you think about a call center operator, they get a call from a customer, which can be about 1 in a million questions. So you got to go and hunt for the answer because you don't know it in your head. So you go to multiple screens, you toggle to find the right answer. Then you got to be able to oftentimes say, I can't find the answer. I'm going to have to send this complaint or question to somebody else. 30% of your work happens after the call is over. You have to write down what the call was about. You got to make a summary of the call. You got to take and convert it into a bunch of questions you have to send out to your colleagues saying, I need the answer to this, so that then you can send a response back to the customer. So if you look at this thing as maybe 2/3, 1/3. Right? This portion of summarizing the call, it can be done in real time by ChatGPT. It's listening to this the whole time and it summarizes the call better than the agent can.
Which would have otherwise taken
a few seconds or a minute or so. Now it does that. First, actually, before that, it actually goes and hunts for the information. So you don't have to toggle the screen. It hunts for whatever information is available. It summarizes the call. It synthesizes the output. And it sends the queries to the colleagues saying, this is what we need to know the answer for.
Real time.
Right? Real time. So 30%, 40% of the agent's work is now done by the computer, ChatGPT, right? That's dramatic because it improves the customer experience. The customer gets much better, more realistic and more refined outcomes. It improves the work of the agent because the agent doesn't have to go through the stress of saying, oh my God, I've got to find the answer quickly. And the agent doesn't have to summarize, which they think is unproductive, and sends the message out. So it's a real win-win-win all around.
Absolutely.
Right? You take this other use case we focused on, which is of software development and testing. Right? The reality is today, ChatGPT or these GenAI models can write software code, the basic software code, as good as any programmer can. Now, this is an area of concern. 5 years ago, we told all our kids, please study coding, go learn Python. Today, we are saying GenAI can do this as good as you can, right? So what should you study? But it does coding very well. And it can go and find the right coding scripts and plug them into your program, right? That's really significant for productivity. On top of that, once you've coded something, you need to test it. Today, what happens is the human brain is limited in terms of how many test cases you can think of. Most of our problems arise out of what are called edge cases, where nobody thought that this could happen and nobody tested it. The ChatGPT tests everything. It can creatively think of every possible edge case and it tests it for you. Right? So again, it improves productivity. It improves the quality of your software programming. It makes it a lot more relevant and reliable for customers. Right? And then you talk about the horizontal. Certainly, because we have so much information within the bank, whether you're a relationship manager or an operations person, it's very hard to go and find what does the policy actually say, which policy should I go look for, what are the customer's transaction history. ChatGPT does that for you and brings it to you consolidated in one place in an instant. Right?
But I don't want to talk about this. This is a new paradigm, but bank interactions with the customer has got to be 100% accurate. How do you work around that?
So I think we will get there. I agree with you, Charmaine. I don't think we're there yet. So let me take you back in time. Like I said, we did our first AI experiments with IBM Watson in 2012, 2013. My vision then was I'd plug IBM Watson into Bloomberg on one side and plug it into the client portfolios on the other side. And it would read everything in Bloomberg and it would compare it to the client portfolio and then it would tell the client what to do. Right, accurately. It didn't work for many reasons. One, it didn't work because natural language processing had not improved to the extent it has now. And those days, it was just sentence parsing. So oftentimes, it didn't get the context of the sentence at all. That's changed dramatically. But the second reason it didn't work is the accuracy of the recommendation was not very good. We were getting at its best 85, 87% accuracy. And to your point, I can't go to the customer if 1 in 6 recommendations is wrong, right? And so the relationship managers didn't have the confidence to use it. Fast forward, today with ChatGPT, it reads everything. It reads graphs, it reads PDFs, it reads pie charts. The old NLP couldn't do it. But more important, its accuracy level has improved a lot. Despite that, its accuracy level is not 100%.
That's right.
And because it's not 100%, we are still very wary of unleashing it on the end customer. And so our current philosophy is that we will always have a human in the middle. So we will use this to inform and advise our employees. It'll facilitate them, and they will then still make sure that there's a check and balance before we use that information finally with the customer. But I have to also tell you that given the pace of change and how quickly the models are improving, I would say that within the next 12, max 24 months, we'll be in a position to go direct to customer. Already, some of the more adventurous banks are doing that. The ING Bank announced they're going to go direct to customer. So some banks are doing that. In our own case, I want to be a little cautious because of the risk of hallucination and the risk of inappropriate language, for example. You know what happened. So because of those things, we want to be a little bit more cautious, but I think that's where it's headed.
Exciting times in 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, in 1 to 2 years.
Easy.
In fact, my current thinking is that we will go direct to customer in a sandbox where we let the customers know that, look, we're letting ChatGPT talk to you, so please be a little forgiving. But it is of tremendous value. So we'll try and do something like that.
Yeah, very, very exciting. How do you feel employees are feeling towards Gen AI and AI, both in terms of possibility and challenges?
The good news is that our approach to all of digitization for the last decade has been, we will take everybody on the journey. So we are very focused on not creating a we-they culture. There is a bunch of people who do this and the other people don't. We started with the belief that everybody can learn. We are all changing our personal lives. Our smartphones are all very different from where they were 5 years ago. So there's no reason why an employee cannot change in their professional life. You have to give them the opportunity to change. You have to give them not just education in the classroom, but let them get their hands dirty to experiment. And you have to be willing to put up with some mistakes, so some risk. And if you create that environment, then everybody can participate in the change. So that's been our first mantra. Everybody will be part of this. That takes the fear and threat out of the system because they're all participating in it.
Absolutely.
The second mantra we've had is that we will work actively to reskill everybody. So when we started digitizing, it was quite clear to us that some jobs would go. We'd need fewer tellers. We would need fewer people in the call center. But we worked with the employees and we worked with all of the staff and we told them these 1,200 jobs are likely to go. How do we reskill you and retrain you that we find you alternate roles? And because we were so transparent and we were so focused on doing this reskilling transformation, we gained the trust of employees. That we meant well and we were doing this to make life easier for them. And they saw that nobody lost their job. And we found everybody, in fact, we used AI to help people find comparable jobs, which leverage on the skill set and not on their experience. Right? So we're already working in an environment where people have trust and confidence that our agenda is right. Now, having said that, the second big thing is for the time being, because we have human in the middle, we are retaining people and we're using ChatGPT AI as a co-pilot, as a virtual worker to help you improve your productivity. Obviously, employees like that. This is making life easier for them.
Oh, yeah.
It's reducing the work for them. So that's also positive. However, if you fast forward in the next year or two, without a doubt, there will be some roles which will become redundant.
Okay.
And they will become redundant because you don't need the role, because the computer does that role. So our approach has got to be the same as we followed for digitization. We have to identify those roles. We have to reskill the people. We have to train the people. And if we don't have the exact role, we've got to find comparable and similar roles that we can migrate people to. If you have a conscious program of doing this, I think the people are happy to go along with the journey, because the truth is this improves the quality of their work and improves the quality of their life. But you must be very focused and conscious about this transformation and reskilling that you need to do.
How so? In terms of?
Well, first, like I said, you got to look at the skill set, not just at the job description.
Okay.
All of us have some skills.
Yes.
And we oftentimes don't think that this skill could be useful in some other role. You're just used to, I do this kind of job. But, underlying that, there's another skill.
Yeah.
So we need to focus on skills, not just on the content of the job. We've created, actually IBF has as well, but at DBS we also created something we call iGrow. And it's an AI-based toolkit which helps you identify skills and look for alternate jobs. Also tells you what is the other skilling you need in between to go from point A to point B. So you have to be very deliberate about making those kinds of choices. At a general level, without doubt, you have to train all your employees on getting comfortable with data. And so we've trained over 12,000 people in a program we call Data Heroes. So you have to get comfortable with how to use data. What are the kinds of questions to ask? How do you create control towers? How do you use data differently? We also did a lot of training with our people to train them on how AI works. How does machine learning work? In the middle of COVID, we signed up with AWS, Amazon Web Services. They have a game called Deep Racer.
Okay.
The Deep Racer game, they come and teach you in half a day how to program an autonomous driving vehicle.
Oh, wow.
And after you do the programming, you race it, and then they teach you how to keep tweaking your ML program to, in an iterative way, keep improving performance.
That's cool.
And originally they used to run it on the tracks, and COVID, they created virtual tracks for us. We had 3,000 people who did this Deep Racer. And because it's a game, so everybody, it's fun. It's fun. It's accessible. Everybody. I did it. So I was in the top 100. I was very happy with myself. But our kids, they were so good that we won. We went into competitions. We won the Southeast Asian competition. We won the Asian competition.
Amazing.
And then 5 of our younger people are in the top 20 in the world, including a global champion is from DBS. And because we made it fun to learn machine learning, AI, data. So you have to gamify, you have to make it fun, you have to take the fear out.
Absolutely.
And then we give people a chance to hone their skills.
Yes. It's intimidating, I think, when you think about it, because we live in an exciting time where things are changing all the time. And if you make it accessible, everyone's
you have to take the risk out. I tell people, if you look at like I said, pick up your smartphone. You're doing Skype differently, you're doing Spotify differently, you're booking your air tickets differently. So in your personal life, you've done it. Then why can't you do it in your work life? The issue is the risk is high. In your work life, you get it wrong, somebody will scold you, you lose your bonus, you might even lose your job. So you're scared.
Sure.
So you have to take that fear out. That, it's okay to try. And second is, you have to try. It cannot be learned only in a classroom. Yes, it's helpful to have, bite-sized curriculum. It's happy to know, it's good to know.
Absolutely.
But finally, you can only break the mental barrier by getting your hands dirty.
And what I love about what you said earlier is that you provide an environment where it's okay. You provide room for a little bit of error.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's what will encourage people to take the fear out.
That's the only way you can do it.
That's
frankly.
true. That's true. Now, we've already talked about existing jobs, right? And how AI or GenAI affects that in the financial sector. Let's talk a little bit about the likely impact of AI and GenAI in the creation of new jobs in the financial sector.
It's hard to envisage all of them right now, Charmaine, but I sometimes use this analogy. 150 years ago, when the world moved from the stagecoach to the motor car, Right? Everything changed. In 10 years, between 1880, 1890 and 1900, you didn't need coachmen, you didn't need, horse, this thing, you didn't need the people who were to go and groomsmen to look at the horses. All the jobs went, right? And you could argue that, there were only some people who became chauffeurs, etc., right? But the system changed. Did everybody who was a coachman or horseman learn to become a chauffeur? I don't know the answer to that, right? But we step back and say, overall for the world, did more economic activity happen? Did larger number of jobs get created? The jobs that we hadn't thought of, traffic warden, policeman, we hadn't even thought of these things. Car repair, the whole industry, we hadn't even thought of these jobs, right? So my view is when technology changes, you have dislocation, and there will be pockets of the population who will be more severely dislocated. You have to work with them to try and make sure you transition them well. But eventually, technology creates new jobs. It creates new opportunities. It creates new productivity, right? And therefore, how do you actually be adaptable and be nimble? So you can partake in the new economy that will be created and the new opportunities that will be created. That is the trick. In our own case, GenAI is still new, so I can't give you the answers. But with the AI, we found that just our reach improved dramatically. So because the computer, the predictive technology allows us to do so much more, we can do it with more customers because we're using AI and ecosystem partnerships to expand our footprint. Now, when I move from 6 million to 18 million customers, I can assure you there are more jobs, right? Without a doubt, we can't, even no matter how much I put into AI, I still need more people, right? So that's what the opportunity space is. The opportunity that comes from scale and the opportunity that comes from a whole bunch of these additional insights. One of the key things that we will need, in my view though, we'll have to rethink our notion of knowledge and education. Now, what do I mean by that? Over the years, in the last century, our biggest focus on knowledge has been memory. So memory is at a premium and information is at a premium. So middle management is important because you know what happened and you have access to information. So what happens in the world where that information is available to everybody for free? And what happens in a world where domain knowledge, the computer always knows more than you. Today, you're already at the stage. I said, you go even on WhatsApp, on the meta on top, you ask it about anything, it'll give you a far more detailed response than most human beings know. So when the domain knowledge starts coming cheaply, accurately, and for free,
and
fast, then your skill set that you need is different. And the skill set that you need now is the skill set of making sense. Right? Not knowing the stuff, but making sense, connecting the dots. Having perspective, understanding why things happen the way they do, being able to be horizontal and lateral in your thinking. Now, guess what? Surprise, surprise. This is what education used to be. If you go back to Plato, you go back to the liberal arts, you go back to the classic, English education, it is all about connecting the dots, the soft sciences. All of those things were important. And I do believe as you go forward, we're going to have to integrate education in a way that is not just, you still need to know domains, don't get me wrong.
Of course.
But you will have to focus a lot more on the horizontals. You'll have to focus a lot more on the capacity to think analytically, the capacity to think creatively, the capacity to be able to make sense of madness. That's what you're going to have to focus on.
So we talked about connecting the dots. I think that one's a big one. What do you think are other skill sets?
Communication, by the way, is a second big skill set. And verbal communication is, in my view, an underrated skill set. Because, even after you create all of the stuff and the computer tells you what you need, you have to be able to inspire people. You have to be able to work with whether the customer own people. So that's an underrated skill set. Behavioral economics and psychology is an underrated skill set. Because a lot of the time, the data tells you what is happening, what is likely to happen. But to get the insight of why is it happening, what is the deep reason behind it? We in DBS now hire a few anthropologists and ethnographers. Why? Because their understanding of why does society behave the way it behaves, why do people behave the way they behave, is very refined. You'll need those kinds of skills, psychology skills, ethnography skills, by the philosophy skills. Why? I think the biggest challenges in the next 5-7 years in the context of AI and data are not going to be challenges of STEM, of technology, right? Those are getting solved. There'll be challenges of ethics.
Yep.
What is the right thing to do? Should you use this data or not use this data? At what stage are we blurring the boundary between the computer and the human being? Okay? At what stage are you being too spooky and too intrusive into the lives of people? These are issues of philosophy. These are not issues of science. So to me, when you say, what skills do you need? I said, a lot of them are the soft skills: philosophy, psychology, anthropology, ethnography. You know, whoever thought in financial services I'd be talking about these kinds of skills.
I feel like we're going back to the basics.
We're going back to the basics.
We've come so far with technology that we've got to kind of water it down to human, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure water it down is the right thing. I think we've got to put the guardrails. You see, the important way to think about it is we need guardrails. And to determine what are the appropriate guardrails, that we're not selling ourselves short, but at the same time be mindful about what it means to us as people, human beings and societies. We have to marry a lot of different skills.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to shift gears a little bit. You are the chairman of the board of trustees of SMU. So if we've got young talents in the workplace, right? What advice would you have to prepare them for what's going to be an AI and GenAI dominated workforce?
Actually, very similar to what we just discussed, Charmaine. You know, first of all, in most universities, including ours, there was a lot of debate on whether we should let the kids use GenAI at all or not. Right? And obviously, there is a question mark. You know, so first people said, oh, GenAI created this, it was not from your brain. Therefore, we should disallow it. The reality is that I don't think you can disallow it. It's a tool. Just like I remember telling people 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when calculators first came.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So
changed the game.
Yeah, but my father used to tell me, don't use the calculator, you'll forget how to count. Do it mentally, right? By the way, I think there's still some value in that. Numbers can speak to me. But by and large, can you imagine today somebody saying, don't use an Excel spreadsheet or don't use a calculator? It's a tool. It makes you more productive. Why would you not use it? And therefore, if you have a tool that makes you more productive, it improves the quality of work. Of course, you should know how to use it, right? So I'm in that camp.
Right.
I still think, however, you need some domain, because if you don't understand the domain at all, you won't be able to make sense.
Agree.
So sense making is important. Therefore, a degree of domain knowledge is important. You must have that. But beyond that, the incremental skills are the ones we just spoke about. You know, analytical thinking, critical thinking, creative thinking, communication skills, empathy skills. I think we need to create a lot more integrated education to be able to deal with all of this in the world to come.
Do you feel that entry-level jobs will be affected by AI and GenAI, even replaced?
I don't think all entry-level jobs. So I can tell you, we already know. You take healthcare jobs, right? You're a physiotherapist. I don't see AI replacing you so easily. Even in financial services, those jobs which require to have customer interaction, empathy, a lot of people still want human-to-human interface and connection. Could it be later that an avatar or a robot can do it for you? Who knows, right? It's not, I mean, you can speculate anything. So I don't think all entry-level jobs, but there's some areas where without a doubt entry-level jobs will be harder, right? Because, you know, for a large part of the routine work, you'll find that GenAI can do it.
I mean, I would say that GenAI, AI is not just a buzzword. If we use it well and we continuously upgrade ourselves and learn, we can actually harness it to help ourselves reshape the future of our work.
We, started measuring the impact of AI, and we're a very simplistic measure. We have a control group where we don't use AI at all. And then all the other groups we use AI, and we capture the difference. And so the difference we attribute to AI.
Wow.
And like I said, next year, I think $1 billion of value. $1 billion of value is spread across everything. Better risk management, better credit control, better insights to our customers, improved service, better incremental sales, better financial management of our liquidity positions, everywhere. Right? And if you go and talk to all the people who are doing this, the jobs haven't been displaced, they've just become more productive. So they're able to capture and create more value. I think that's a good thing.
I feel like if we use it well, we can use this tool for productivity, have better work-life balance, and just make us more efficient at work.
I would agree entirely. I think it can have really positive outcomes for both customers and employees, and then as consequently for shareholders as well.
Oh, yes, that's true. Now, while I have you here, before I let you go, if you would indulge me, I did ask AI about you. Could you verify a few points?
Okay.
Okay. AI tells me that you love cricket.
Yeah,
And
it's
that you've
correct.
been playing this since you were living in India.
AI is not entirely
Okay,
correct.
not correct?
So I love cricket. I'm a cricket nut, like most people who grew up in India. But I played only neighborhood cricket. My sports were actually badminton and hockey.
Oh, see, it's not 100% accurate.
See, that's why you can't release it to the customer yet.
Okay, agree. But in 2 years, maybe. In 2 years, maybe. Okay, AI also told me that you love reading, in particular, books on history and economics.
That's true. I read all kinds, but eclectic. I read fiction, non-fiction,
A non-fiction.
physics, everything.
Okay, so no particular genre.
No particular genre. So it
it
depends on
highlighted?
where my mood is in this thing. So 2 years ago, I was reading a lot of books on spirituality. This year, I've been reading a lot of books on sustainability.
Beautiful.
So,
Okay.
so what, actually, a book I recommend was in Barack Obama's reading list. That's where I picked it up from, called Ministry for the Future. The guy called Robinson, Stanley Robinson. Outstanding book.
Yeah.
It's a little dystopian for a large part,
Okay.
but it is very good. And then even more recently, I read the book by a lady called Hannah Ritchie from Oxford. It's, I think, Why the World is Not Coming to an End or something. It's a more upbeat view on the fact that we know and we have the tools to solve the sustainability problems.
AI said you're a family man. You love spending time with your wife and kids when you're not at work.
Yes and no. Yes,
Okay.
it didn't get grandkids.
There we go. See, it's not updated.
my grandkids are 4 and 2, and right now they're the center of my life.
The proof is in the pudding, right? Not 100% yet. I've still got a few more questions for you. I'd love to know, how do you stay motivated for continuous learning?
I don't know how to answer that question other than to say I'm naturally curious. And so because I'm curious, I've always got an interest in a whole bunch of different things. So I satisfy the curiosity in 2 or 3 ways. One, through reading, we talked about. I try to read a lot because that informs my thinking. Second, I talk to a lot of people. And I talk to people, whether they're young kids or consultants or outside people, because they tell me things and then I can start connecting dots. You know, somebody told me something, somebody has told me something, I read something, I piece it together and I start forming a view on, what things might be. But increasingly, I'm finding that I learn a lot more from the young kids than I learn from anybody else.
Yeah.
You know, my whole learning around crypto or the virtual games or, how to do, some of the new stuff all came from the kids. One day I had this, some kids came and spent half a day with me to teach me about Axie Infinity and,
Wow.
how do you create scholars and tribes and things in the gaming world. We didn't know any of that stuff.
Amazing. Any parting advice, mantra, or quote that you live by?
I think this idea of continuous learning is very, very important. You said that earlier, Charmaine. The pace of change is unimaginable. And because things are changing so fast, our old paradigm that you study for the first 20 years of your life and you create a reservoir of knowledge and then you keep dipping into it through the rest of your life, that can't work anymore. Because you have to keep refilling the reservoir. And to keep refilling that reservoir, you need to do a bunch of everything. You got to keep going back to class. You got to keep reading. You got to keep refreshing your brain. And as you grow older, I think the mind becomes a little less flexible. So your learning methodologies have to keep changing. Like I said, get your hands dirty, take some risk, etc. But for all of these things, I also think that what we try to do at IBF, for example, is quite helpful. You've got to think about capabilities. You've got to think about capability ladders. You've got to think about transformation maps from, where. So if you can orchestrate some of this, it makes it easier for the individual to be able to do that. So my mantra is really this, stay curious and keep learning.
Oh yeah, I'm absolutely on board with that too, with the way I live my life. Any parting thoughts or exciting things to look forward to when it comes to AI or GenAI?
I think the big issues really will start coming when you mix GenAI with better accuracy, but with humanoid robotics. this, you're already seeing,
Yeah.
people going around with these people who look completely human and talking to them.
Yeah.
I think the notion that you could actually your best friend could wind up being a robot is not that far from
You think?
reality.
I'd say
very much.
20 years maybe.
I think much quicker than that. Already you're seeing people who are beginning to create friendships with all kinds of virtual things, right?
Right. Okay, so 5 years.
Yeah, maybe 5 years.
A lot earlier than we would like. And one final question for you that I did ask GenAI. I asked GenAI, to no answer, by the way, whether you like chocolate. Zero accuracy. I didn't get an answer at all. So what is the answer?
So that AI doesn't know, but I like chocolate.
You do love
I have
chocolate?
a sweet tooth and I'm a big chocolate fan.
Okay, well, I have prepared some for you.
Oh, really?
I hope you are a fan of this chocolate. Thank you very much for your time. There's plenty in there to share with your
Oh, it's also my
family.
favorite chocolate.
Yes?
Thank you.
Your family, whoever, your
thank
kids,
you very much.
your grandkids. And now for future reference, we will make it 100% accurate.
Correct.
They know now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope this episode has helped you understand more about GenAI and build confidence in this new GenAI-enabled world. If you found this episode insightful, please like, share, and subscribe. And remember, the learning doesn't stop here. There is more to explore in finance. Check out IBF's website for more information on skills training.